Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Hayley.
After meeting online, we became international best friends who bonded over how hard it is to find success in the entertainment industry.
Join us and our celebrity co-authors as they help us write the book on how to make it.
And, more importantly, uncover what making it even means.
Hi, my name is Michael Chernus, and I wanted to be a fireman when I grew up, just like many little children.
Classic.
Yeah, and then I moved into wanting to be the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz.
Hey, I wanted to be Dorothy, so...
Hey, cool.
I wanted to be the lion.
All right, we've got 3/4 of a squad going here. Okay.
This could have been the cast of Wicked. What happened?
It all went to terrible shit. No lion here.
When did you first want to be an actor?
The first moment that I was on stage, which was in a school play. I was in the 8th grade, and it was a stage adaptation of The Hobbit, and I played Gandalf the Wizard.
Yes.
And it was like just a school play, like in a gymnasium, but I was hooked, and it felt like I was, starring on Broadway. And so I just knew, I don't know that I knew that I wanted to be a professional actor, or even knew really how one would do that, but I just knew I wanted to keep doing it. And I loved being on stage, and I loved working on a play, whatever that meant to me as like a 13-year-old kid. Just, I think it was mostly probably unconscious process at that point, but and the social aspect of it was a big deal for me. And I'm sure a lot of actors and theater folks, writers, directors, maybe feel like misfits in normal society. And I didn't play sports or anything as a kid, so I kind of found my tribe or my social clique when I discovered theater. And so for me, that was a large part of it, was just, making friends and, girls. And I was also, I guess, even then I had some kind of knack for it on some level. And so, getting that attention too, being in the spotlight. And
That's great. I think it's those early school plays where you realize whether that kind of adrenaline is pleasurable or terrifying, or both.
Right, or both. But it kind of separates the wheat from the chaff. It's like
that's it. Did you go to Juilliard? Did I read that correctly?
I did. I did.
Yeah. I know that's kind of a big deal. I'm not.
That's true.
I don't know loads about the American drama school scene. I know a lot about the UK drama school scene, but I know Juilliard's a thing.
It's a big deal. But when you said you discovered you had a knack for it, I was like, getting into Juilliard is a big deal. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is a big deal, and it was certainly an incredible experience going there, and I learned a ton. But it's also like any place has its, and I went a long time ago. I think barely any of the teachers I had are even still there. But it also had its flaws, and it's the actual experience of it isn't as maybe mystical and amazing as it sounds like it would be. But partly how I came to apply for Juilliard was, so I did that school play in the 8th grade, and then I was so interested in theater that I had my mom enroll me at children's theater classes at this great children's theater school in Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up, in the suburbs of Cleveland. And it's kids from all over the greater Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio. So it wasn't just kids from my high school. And they approach teaching kids acting pretty seriously. And although it was a lot of children's theater then. So I did Hansel and Gretel and Alice in Wonderland and whatever. And there was this guy who was a couple of years older than me who got into Juilliard when he graduated high school, and he would come back in the summers and teach at this children's theater in Cleveland, and I just thought he was the coolest guy. Like, he was like handsome, kind of looked like a young Daniel Day-Lewis, like dark black hair, and he wore like, I'm probably imagining this because it was in the summer, but I feel like he had like a leather jacket on and was like smoking cigarettes. And when he would do this summer session with us, he would teach us like Eugene O'Neill plays and David Mamet plays and Sam Shepard, and I was like, what is this? This isn't Sleeping Beauty. This is crazy. And so it was sort of two parts. Like, I wanted to go to Juilliard and move to New York because I just admired this older guy so much, and he was sort of like my role model. And then also he made it kind of attainable. Like, I think if I hadn't had him in my life, I would have been intimidated or freaked out. But I was like, oh, other people from the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, go to Juilliard. I could do that. His name's Michael Tisdale. He's a great actor, a great writer. So I owe a lot to him.
Do you still stay in touch?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I do.
You should ask if he actually had a leather jacket or if that was all in your head.
I should. Yeah.
We move into a section where we each tell you just a random fact about you. And
I've been listening.
Boy. He's done research.
Oh boy.
And I'm wondering what you know about me.
Well, mine is going to be the same that it was a couple episodes ago, in that you are technically now an audiobook performer as well. And listen, I certainly learned a lot from listening to that audiobook. I mean, I'm now going to always refer to hiking as advanced walking.
Yes, it's important.
And the that he hates Sister Act, and the amount of SAT words that were in that whole thing. I'm wondering how much you learned and we're like, wait, what? About it as you were performing that, and how different it was between like performing on TV versus in a booth.
That's a great question. It's so hard to do an audiobook. It's so exhausting. Like, it was a long, full day, and my voice was wrecked. I mean, it's sort of like art imitating life, or vice versa. Like in the last episode of season 1 of Severance, when Rickon's voice starts giving out, I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to warble in the same way. It was really difficult. And, even though I'm reading it not as a typical audiobook narrator, I'm reading it in a character voice that I've played, there was still a lot of, you're doing too much, your P's and T's, all your plosives are popping. And I just felt like I had to like have this restraint with it that I wasn't anticipating. And it's just taxing. And then, I had to look up a ton of stuff. Dan Erickson, who created Severance and is our main writer, he's just so smart and has an encyclopedic knowledge of all things. And so, there were so many references. I was like, I don't know who that is or what that is, but I have to sound like I know what that is. So Rickon's taught me. Rickon's taught me some things.
It was, I mean, I could see you being exhausted just by the amount of word, like the big word. I was like, because I love self-help books. I was taking a walk this morning, listening to a self-help book. And so my brain got a little... I was listening, The Let Them by Mel Robbins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Let Them. Sure.
I was like switching between calling Haley and being like, I need your advice, to like listening to Mel Robbins. But
her daughter is a pop singer, and I saw her play at Carnegie Hall as part of this larger event.
What?
Yeah, my friend
now
Ryan
we move
Miller,
on to interesting facts about
Mel Robbins.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was
so she let them.
I never thought.
She let her kids go be musicians, which is a worse choice than even letting them be actors. So there you
that
go.
is true. Yeah, because I was listening to your audiobook.
Sure.
And my brain was getting confused because I would be like, okay, like here's a train. I'm like on this train of thought, and then it would like just divert into Sister Act, and I'd be like, wait, I don't think I'm supposed to actually be taking anything away from this.
Where are you? Emma?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Rickon
true.
has a bit of spiritual ADD. He's kind of all over the place. Yeah, but that's
love that.
maybe part of the
He's
brilliance.
incredible.
Spiritual ADD is going to be something I use.
Absolutely. My slightly surprising fact is that you met your wife on a farm.
True story.
Go. Oh. Tell me about the farm.
My
and
wife.
Your wife.
Yes.
Both of those things are important.
My wife, whose name is Emily, is an incredible human being, but she founded a arts nonprofit years ago, which was part artist residency program and part working organic farm, housed on a farm that's been an organic farm since the creation of organic certification, and has been in the same family since the 1700s in upstate New York. And Emily created this organization called Space on Ryder Farm, which over the years ended up supporting thousands of artists, and they would come and stay on the farm for 1 to 5 weeks, and they would apply with a project, whether it be a play or a film or a dance piece or a visual artist with their work. And they would live on the farm and work on their projects, and they would get 3 farm fresh meals a day.
Wow.
An incredible organization that sadly has since shuttered. Years ago, my friend Max Posner, who's a playwright, was in residence, and he was working on a play, and the end of his time at the farm was going to be a staged reading in the barn of this play that he was working on. He asked me to be in it. And I was also single at the time, and Max was trying to be a matchmaker. And so he was there for a number of days on the farm before I arrived, and he was sending me these emails being like, dude, this place is awesome. It's totally up your alley. It's this groovy organic farm. Also, the woman who runs this place is amazing, and she's single. And I was like, chill. We'll see when I get up there. And unbeknownst to me, he was doing the same thing. Emily, being like, my buddy Chernus is coming up, great guy, great actor, single. And she was like, I'll be open to it as long as you're not weird. This is my place of work, so don't be obvious about it, right? Yeah. And so I pull up to the farm, and he comes bounding out of this 1700s farmhouse, and he's like, welcome home, Michael, welcome. And we go on this tour of the farm with other people, and there's a flock of sheep, and he calls out to the sheep, and he's like, look, it's Papa has returned, and just makes it as effing weird as possible. And so Emily and I don't talk that entire day because she's totally freaked out, and at work she's like the boss there, and so there's really kind of no vibe or anything. And I go back to the city, and I write her an email, mostly just to say thank you, what you're doing at the farm is incredible, I was so happy to be there. Also, if you're ever in the city, I'd love to take you out for dinner or coffee. And because I was living in LA for a while right before that, I was like, or a smoothie, which is so embarrassing.
Well, what year was it? Because that would have come off really cool.
It was 2013, so smoothies were a little cooler then.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
No, I think that's okay.
Half-hearted, yeah. And so luckily she was like, I'm going to be in the city on Thursday, and I'd love to go out to dinner. And I quickly Googled farm to table restaurant Brooklyn.
Oh.
And then I lied, and I was like, what about this place Buttermilk Channel that I love and go to all the time? And she was like, oh yeah, I know that place. That's great. And so that was our first date, which was September 26, 2013. And then we were married September 26, 2015, in the backyard of that farmhouse. And my playwright friend, Max Posner, who made it weird, was our rabbi, shaman, reverend,
amazing,
ordained online minister. So yeah, that's the whole
crazy love exists, you guys.
There it is. See, Emily, you need
There's
a friend
hope
like
for me
that.
yet. Yeah.
You need a friend like that who can bring you a good match rather than me, who brings you really emotionally unavailable people.
Right.
It's bad.
You gotta find a Max,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Maybe that's
Haley's a great podcasting partner, a bad matchmaker.
I'm terrible at this.
Terrible. You know, I think here's my idea, guys. We should go on Shark Tank. Instead of dating apps, what about a wingman app? Find your wingman.
Great idea. Let's after we get off this call, let's start. Let's like
okay, great.
Start developing.
come up with a
Emily
name.
has loads of
buy a
ideas for
website.
apps.
Yeah.
I
How
don't know
many?
how to-
How many have come to fruition?
0,
Yeah,
because
great.
I can't develop apps.
Cool. So I have a lot of hope for our Wingman app. This is going to go great.
No, I think there's a real need and appetite.
Find your wings. That's what it's our slogan.
Oh, hey. All right.
I'm great at making up ideas. I already know what I'm gonna wear to the launch, like all that, and then just it's never gonna happen.
Cool.
All right,
Great.
Moving on.
I wanted to ask you. I'm gonna take a sharp turn.
Okay.
Oh, go on.
I'm turning the car around.
Great.
I wanted to talk to you about playing John Wayne Gacy.
Sure. That's a natural segue. Yeah.
Well,
Why are we laughing about this?
No, we should.
Because there's no other way. There's no other way.
It's an awkward. It's a hard thing to bring up.
It's
yeah.
like
It is.
ha ha.
Yeah.
I have a fascination with true crime. Like I listen to the
Sure.
podcast all the time. I have a book that I recently got about like the most famous serial killers in America. I'm wondering how you deal with playing a character like that, because I even sometimes when I'm listening to these things, like, and I'm not even looking at anything or watching anything, I need to like cleanse and not listen because my mood just drastically shifts. And I'm wondering how you kind of prepare and get in and out of being able to do that.
Yeah. It was really tough. And I don't think I realized how hard it was until I was out of it. So for everybody who's listening who doesn't know, this is a upcoming 8-part limited series for Peacock called Devil in Disguise, John Wayne Gacy, and we made it in Toronto last like September through March, and so I'm pretty freshly out of it, and so first of all, I did a ton of research. And there's a lot of material out there. There are lots of books and documentaries and YouTube videos and podcasts, and some were, obviously way more useful than others, but I really wanted to kind of be exhaustive about it and make sure that I, learned everything that I could, not out of a morbid fascination, but out of a respect for the gravity of the material and the respect for the victims and the victims' families. How I went about it, there were lots of technical ways I tried to find a way into the character, but in terms of like protecting myself spiritually, I would say one of the big things was, in my opinion, he was so disconnected from what he was doing. He was so dissociated, and that in a way he wasn't emotionally affected by it. And and I mean that to sound as harsh as it is, because he was an awful human being. Like he didn't,
like a sociopath.
He didn't care about these people. And so in an odd way, the being of him wasn't the difficult part. It was like after we wrapped, for the night or whatever, then like taking in what just happened or what I just shot. But like the other actors, I think, had a much harder time on set. Like the great actress Marin Ireland, who's an old friend of mine, she plays Elizabeth Peast, who was the mother of Gacy's last known victim, Rob Peast. And every time she's on camera, she's crying or screaming or freaking out about finding her son, or then processing the fact that her son was murdered and her son's body was found. And for me, I'm looking back at it, I was like, that's a much harder job, actually. You're showing up and having to be raw and vulnerable every day. And my job was to like be not vulnerable and disconnected from what I was doing. So in some weird way that protected me. And then the other thing was my family moved with me to Toronto. So luckily my wife Emily was able to come, and we have a 2-year-old daughter and our dog Murray, and and we rented like a place that we could be a family in, and we fell
Yeah.
in love with Toronto. And so every day that I'd come home shooting, I'd have my people, and I'd have my beautiful daughter and my
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous fluffy dog and my incredible wife, and that helped normalize it. Like I think if I was alone in Toronto, in some sad little 1-bedroom corporate apartment or hotel room, that could have gotten really dark really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just so opposite of like Patriot or you selling your sister's underwear on Orange is the New Black. Just really,
yes.
really different.
Really different. Yeah. I love that you know Patriot.
Yes, my friend Anthony. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Anthony.
He's
cool
he's
Rick
actually
cool Rick loves you, Anthony.
He writes actually for King of the Hill. So cool. very into comedy.
Yeah.
I met him because I was working at Warner Brothers, and he wrote for The Big Bang Theory for the 45 years that it was on.
Yeah. Heard of it. Big
so
Bang Theory.
Yeah. It's familiar.
The Big Band Theory, right? It's about
it's about
jazz, jazz orchestra.
Yeah. That band in the season finale of Severance. It's a
crossover episode between the Big Band Theory and Severance. Yeah.
Anyway, guys, after this call, we should pitch a show called The Big Band Theory. Sorry.
I think it'd be a better app, Emily. I think it's a better app.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did your family come with you to or I don't know how long you guys were here. I'm in New Jersey. I'm 15 minutes away from Lumen. Did your family come with you when you were shooting Severance? Although I guess your daughter was not.
My daughter was born at the beginning of in the middle of season 2. So my biggest concern when we were starting season 2 was like, what if I'm on set or something when my wife goes into labor? And then the strikes happen, first the writer's strike and then the actor's strike. And so we were shut down like every other show. Okay. And so my daughter was born while the strikes were happening. And I was actually able to have a 8-month paternity leave, which was, I would joke that I had the best strike experience of anyone, just being home, and be a new dad and be bonding with my daughter. The interesting thing about Severance is we shoot all over the place. So the Lumen headquarters, the exterior is Bell Labs in New Jersey, where we just had a really great PR for your consideration event.
I was there.
Oh, you were there? Oh, wasn't that awesome?
So I'm going to tell this really short. Yeah. It was 3:30 on Saturday. I saw a post by Bellworks because I follow them on Instagram. And it was like, there might be a surprise. And I was like, they're either going to be giving out free pencils or the entire cast of the show is going to be there. I was like, there's no in between. So I jumped in my car. And I was there by 4:30, and I stood in the standing room section until 7 when you guys started, and it was unbelievable. It was like, I can't believe this is happening, and I wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't have been known enough about the industry to be like, I just have to go. So
I'm so glad you did. It was such a cool event.
Yeah.
It looked amazing.
It was amazing. So that's where the Lumen headquarters is. But then, so Rickon and Devin's house is in Pleasantville, New York, in this amazing development called Usonia, which has 3 original Frank Lloyd Wright houses, and then the rest of the houses were designed by Lloyd Wright disciples. And a lot of the other Mark's sad little kind of apartment complex. That's in, I think, Nyack, New York. So we're kind of all over. So I've actually never shot in New Jersey. I've always shot. I'm mostly at Rickon and Devin's house.
If next season you end up going to Bellworks, let me know. I know a great sub sandwich place.
Great.
It's Jersey. you know?
Jersey sandwiches are great. Yeah.
Sandwiches, bagels. It is a beautiful. Well, you were there. It's a beautiful, beautiful building.
It's incredible. It's actually incredible.
Yeah.
No. So one of the many joys of that show is I get to be at home, and especially we shot season 1 during like some of the darkest days of the early COVID pandemic, and so it was such a. I would have taken that job if it was anywhere, but the fact that it was at home and I didn't have to travel just made it so much better.
Yeah.
That just never happens, does it?
No. Usually the life of the actor is like Murphy's Law, like whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and like and for me with this job everything is like gone right. My daughter being born during the strikes, and to be safe at home during the pandemic, it's been a real gift in more ways than just an artistic or career gift.
Yeah. What kind of draws you to a role? Because like when I look at everything you've done, it's been incredibly diverse, like even within your theatre work. Like when you read a script, what is it that makes you go, yes?
I'm lucky enough now to be in a place where I can make that choice. I mean, I would say years ago, I would say yes because it was being offered to me, and there was a chance to be an actor and be paid or not paid to be an actor. But now that I'm in this sort of very lucky, blessed position to be a little choosy, it's sort of an undefinable thing. It's just like there's just sort of like with Rickon, I was just like he's just so singular. Like I've never read a character like him. He's so odd and so ridiculous and grandiose, and yet has this kind of vulnerability and softness, and I think like with even though his book is so ridiculous, there is sometimes like a wisdom in there, buried in there, and
that's
so I love the right. And I love the challenge of being like that. I don't want to play this guy as a total joke. Like, there is a joke there. There's an inherent joke in the writing. He's not like a super serious character. He's there for some levity and buffoonery, but I also like want to make him full and whole and organic and like as complicated as any other person on this planet, and full of possibilities and dimension. So with him, it was just his unique voice and some of the phrases that he uses, and and just the things he does, like having a no dinner party, or having a child develop through the years in 3 different beds, or hanging the kelp when a child is born, or all these different things that just felt totally made up, but also totally realistic when you picture some kind of crunchy yet intellectual, maybe rich, annoying person. I mean, it's just like, I don't know that there's any history of like having a child sleep in 3 different beds in the same room, but it feels like totally believable that someone.
So it is. There is. I can't remember what it was called. I watch the episodes and then I go on YouTube and I listen for hours of people talking about. I'm one of those people. Amazing. And someone actually did research on the bed thing, and it is something that people do. They have like these cribs that can then turn into toddler beds that they can, so that it's the same. Connect. Yeah. So that is that is a thing.
That's a thing. But there isn't like a race car bed.
Oh.
But then you move into like an actual adult bed. Like,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, that would be cool. I would like a race car bed.
I mean, I'd like one now. Yeah.
Same.
There's our third product.
But yeah, and in terms of like, I think there's a whole equation of choosing a project for me. It's about the character, but then there's other things like, is the larger piece, the play or the movie or the TV show, like saying something that I'm interested in or believe in, or discussing some kind of issue, whether it's current or just sort of historic or universal about being a human being that I'm interested in? Are there people that I really am dying to work with, whether it's a director, or writer, or other actors? Is it in a location that would be really interesting to go visit or spend time in? And then, obviously the other life boxes, like, is it financially a good experience, a good, is it a bonus financially to my life? Is it would it be helpful to my career? Weird as that sounds.
But it's a business decision as well,
isn't it? Oh, yeah. Totally.
It is, but I feel like if you make things, if that's your leading edge, like, you just don't have an interesting career, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a time in your career that, if you've listened, we have a section that is called The Story. And it's meant to be a time in your career where you were doing a task or in a position or sometime at work or on your way to the career you wanted, where you kind of have an out-of-body moment where you're like, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. So the beginning of my career, I was mostly doing theater. I mean, I was only doing theater. And that's, as I said, what I've loved from like an early age. And it's what I trained to do at Juilliard. The training is, I wouldn't even say primarily, it's almost exclusively a training for the stage. And really, especially when I went there, training for the classical theater, Shakespeare, Moliere, and Chekhov. And I was lucky enough to know a lot of young playwrights. When I was at school, there's also a great playwriting program at Juilliard. So a lot of my friends were writers. And when I got out of school, a lot of the work I was doing was partly because no one was asking me to do film and television, and I wasn't booking any jobs through auditions. People were casting me in plays, and sometimes off Broadway, like in a storefront for like no money or very little money. And eventually I started to claw my way into the New York theater world, and I was eventually, by 2007, 2008, I was doing really great new plays and interesting new plays by great writers at very good off-Broadway theaters. And I had this season from the fall of 2007 to the spring of 2008 where I was in 4 off-Broadway plays back to back to back. And I was like rehearsing one play while doing another play at night, and I was exhausted, but I was just being used up as an actor in the best way. I mean, I use that, like, not being used in a gross way, but just like all of my faculties and energy and creativity and imagination were just totally on fire and being put to use. And it was, in some ways, artistically the happiest I've ever been. And I was practically bankrupt. Like, I just, even doing 2 plays at the same time, you're just not making enough to survive in New York City.
The joy of theatre.
And so I had this out-of-body sort of epiphany of like, if this is not the pinnacle of my theater career, but this is like kind of having arrived. I could obviously go on to do Broadway where it's much more lucrative, but like, if this is like a moment of being like an established New York theater actor, I need to really think seriously about my life choices here. And I was young enough that I was like, I could pivot, but I don't really know how to do anything else. I mean, one of the drawbacks of going to Juilliard is like, I ain't going to be a plumber now.
No.
And I ain't going to be a banker, and I'm not going to be anything. I'm not going to...
Or a fireman.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to be a fireman. Or the scarecrow. And so I decided that I was going to take a year where I was going to say no to pretty much any theater offer or audition that came in, unless it was something huge that I couldn't say no to, in order to be available to film and TV. Because one of the things that was happening was I was in these theater productions that I really cared about, with artists that I cared about and I had made a commitment to, and some who had written roles for me. And I couldn't then be like, oh, hey, I just booked an episode of Law and Order. I'm going to have to drop out of the play, or I'm going to have to go to Memphis to shoot this indie, so I was just never available for film and TV.
This is what happens. This is what happens. People get stuck in theatre that way, don't they?
You can, yeah, because the work is so incredible. Like, I love being on camera. The work is also very engaging. It's not that one is better than the other, but that high of being on stage, that communication with the audience, it's unlike anything else on the planet. And and the more you're in the theater, the more it's a small community at the end of the day, and so the more people know you, and they're starting to make work for you. And I think I could have very happily just stayed in the theater world exclusively, but I couldn't have lived. And so anyway, I took this year where I was like, I'm just gonna not do plays, and I started to claw my way into doing. So I did some films that year, nothing major in terms of roles, but in some big films. And I ended up, it's a long game, right? It's a long career. It's a long life. And so in that year, I met some filmmakers and people who I've gone on to work with a bunch of times in larger capacities. So it was all worth it in planting seeds. But like during that year off from the theater, I was also like, oh shit, I made a total mistake. Cause I'm not like, it wasn't like I immediately then booked a pilot and moved to LA and was making a bunch of money. Like, there is a kind of starting over. It's the same sort of career, but you're meeting all kinds of different casting directors. You're, most film and TV directors aren't familiar with your off-Broadway credits. So it's not like that transfers over into the other medium. And, so that's my for the story section. I think there was this year where I took a gamble on myself and said, I'm going to leave this thing where I'm having success and make sort of this like odd choice. It doesn't feel like the instinctual choice. You've got a bird in the hand here with this theater career. Like, keep going. Yeah.
It's a brave decision. It's an incredibly brave decision, because you were like award winning, like in the wake, hugely successful.
Yeah, I had a very, I'm talking about like it's over. I mean, I would love to do more plays.
I was going to say, I was like.
Yeah, but I won an Obie for this beautiful play called In the Wake at the Public Theater, and I was lucky enough to work with some incredible playwrights. I was in the world premiere of a play called The Aliens by Annie Baker.
That's incredible.
But there's also an element of I think I just realized that the lifestyle is maybe I wasn't cut out to be a theater person exclusively. Like the 8 shows a week, it's the hardest thing in the world. It's so taxing, and as you get older, the toll it takes on your body, and and I also knew I really wanted to have a family, and now that I have a child, I'm like, how? I mean, obviously, plenty of people do it, but right now I'm like, she's 2, and I'm like, some days it's like, how am I going to take a shower today?
That's it.
Getting it together to talk to you guys in this podcast was like
you're
Olympic
amazing
feat,
I'm
not amazing. I'm just a dad who is
my kids
trying
are
to
in
keep
the
it
living
together.
room.
Oh, nice.
Under strict instructions. I'm like, do not come in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Do not move. I've set them up with stuff to do. You do not move from that space. It's tricky, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I just saw, I was thinking about the 8 shows thing, because I just saw Death Becomes Her last weekend on Broadway, and I was so exhausted by the time they were finished, and I was just obviously sitting. I was like, I cannot imagine doing this. I just don't know. It boggles the mind. So I feel like I would fail in that regard. I'd do 2 shows, and I'd be like, I think they got it.
Yeah, I think we did it. I think that was good. We figured
Good work, everyone.
Good work. All right.
I think on sets with cast and crew, the people who have come from theatre backgrounds, because they moan a lot less. Because they're used to being exhausted in theatre and being
It is true. Yeah. Someone told me once that a theater actor, because at the end of the day they hang up their costume in the trailer instead of just leaving it
God, that's
on the
so
floor.
true.
Yeah. there's a
That is
kind
so
of,
true.
you know, I mean this in the best way, but there is kind of a blue collar attitude to a theater worker. You know, it's a craft, right? It's a
Yeah,
trade,
for sure.
and it's something that you learn and you apprentice for, and it's not something that's handed to you, and it takes a village to make it. So you know, when you're backstage with the stagehands and everyone, you realize how it's a family affair, and how symbiotic it is, and we all need each other. And so I think we all bring that to then the set, and it's like, you know, the respect for the crew. Really know this, and especially on Devil in Disguise when we were making this thing about John Gacy, you know, it affected all of us. Like everyone was worried about me, but I was worried about the camera folks who were having to watch every second of this, you know, through the lens.
It's hugely activating.
Hugely, yeah. Or you know, the costume department was having to do all this research about, you know, and see all these photos, you know, these photos of these bodies or the crime scene. And it's everyone's in it together, and that's the thing that folks at home don't see. You know, it's like all the people who don't get the credit that the actors get, or the directors get, or the writers get.
I'm gonna move us on to the making it section, which is just, what is your definition of making it? How would you define that within your career or your life in general?
You know, I feel that I've made it because I do what I love to do, and I am generally comfortable in my life, and I feel challenged by the material I work on, and I am inspired by the people I work with. That sounds kind of corny, but
no,
there's always more to like go for in all those regards I was talking about. Like there's more challenges artistically, like playing John Gacy's a kind of character I've never played before. So like getting to do that was a new artistic level of exploration. But like, and then there's obviously like all the outside stuff we're talking about. Like there's new career levels, and there's new financial levels. But like making it, I don't know. For me, it's about just being able to worry a little bit less. Like it's never guaranteed, and it's such a fickle business, and but just being able to feel like, okay, I'm here. You know, I think there's a difference. People talk about like making it, and there's a difference between arriving and then like making it. Like I feel like there's a moment where you're like, okay, oh wow, I'm here. Like I'm actually in the room where it happens. Like and that's different for every actor, but I'm on a set of a big TV show, or I'm in a Broadway play, or I'm whatever it is. You know, I got a contract on a tour of a musical, and so you've arrived in that moment of like your first big job, and you're like you really self-identify as a professional actor, and then there's this point I think where you've been doing it for a while, and you've accrued some hours and some experience, and you start to have a reputation, and people know your work, and you know, I'm still surprised. Like you brought up Patriot, and you know, for a number of reasons, a lot of people didn't see that show, but sometimes you feel like you make these things in a vacuum, and like nobody. And I'm still shocked when people know my work, because
you're so funny in it.
Oh, thanks. That's not a. I'm not talking about like whether I'm good on it or not. It's just like I'm still surprised that people know anything I do. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's still obviously I know that Severance is like an international hit, but like it's still, and I hope I never lose this. I'm still like a little kid, like being like, oh wow, you watched that? You saw that? Like that's crazy. This is such a long, not succinct answer to your question.
No, carry on. No, it's great. Carry on.
Making it for me is being able to make choices in my career, not out of necessity, but out of interest.
That's a
so
good
being
one.
able to choose the projects I want because they're interesting to me not because I need the money
Yeah.
or the credit.
Yeah,
That is a good one. It's a thinker.
Well, I like the for a second when you were talking about arriving versus making it, I felt like I was listening to the audiobook again.
Yeah.
In a good way. I was like, oh, like I'm learning something. Anyway.
Like,
But yeah.
I definitely knew you before Severance.
Yeah.
Like, you're recognizable, like, from Dead Ringers.
Oh,
That's
cool.
a great show.
Thanks.
It's a great show.
It is a great show.
Like when you're recognizable like that, like that's a cool place to be, right, as an actor?
Well, yeah, and it's a great sweet spot right now in terms of just my private life, because I feel like people know my face, but they don't know why.
Yeah.
And sometimes they know I'm an actor and they can't place it, but sometimes they'll be like, hey, did you go to high school with my sister? Or like,
I used to do that in LA all the time. In LA in the grocery store, I'd be like, you're either super famous or you live near me. I don't know.
Right. And especially when you live in like New York or LA or Chicago, it's like it could be either one. And it used to drive my wife crazy because we'd be on the subway and someone would be staring at me and then they'd be like, I know you. And I'd be like, maybe, how? And she'd be like, Jesus Christ. And they'd be like, did you go to like, where did you go to college? And I'd be like, well, I went to Juilliard, but like, and she would just say that you're an actor and you're on a TV show. And I'm like, and so she was encouraging me to like just own it more and just be like, I'm an actor, and so I was at a bar in New York a couple of years ago and the bartender was like, hey man, I know you. And I was like, yeah, I'm an actor. And he was like, no, I'm from Cleveland. I used to play in bands with your brother. And I was like, oh yeah, hey dude. And like 2 seconds later, 2 minutes later, I get a text from my brother like, hey, hotshot, heard you're trying to be a big Hollywood actor at a bar, huh? Yeah. So I got burned on that one. So,
Michael, I went out with a guy who was on one thing.
Oh my God.
10 years ago, like 12 years ago, like, and he was late to our entire day. Like it was like a full day of things, and because he kept thinking people were recognizing him and they weren't, and so he'd have to stop and explain where they might know him from.
Oh no.
So
that's
guys, this is why we need the app.
Yeah, we need the app. Yeah, no.
But it was and I saw it happen once because I was like, I gotta get on the subway, like I'm gonna miss the ferry.
And then he would just like give them his resume of like,
we were like walking by a group and they were like, hey man, and he'd be like, hey, let me tell you where you might know me from.
And they were just like, hey, no, your shoe is untied, man. I was just trying to help you. No, I didn't see you on NCIS. Yeah, I just,
redacted. Yeah.
I did not set that one up.
No, you didn't.
Nice, good.
That was my fault. But it's just, yeah. So I feel like there's a middle, probably.
There's totally a middle ground. But yeah, but you can't get burned. Yeah, no. To your original point, like, no, it is a sweet spot of like, I feel like I can be anonymous-ish, and not, because like I've worked with a lot of super famous people, and there are obviously a ton of benefits that go along with being super famous, but there really are some very bad sides of it where like you can't go anywhere normal. Like, this is an extreme example, but I did Captain Phelps with Tom Hanks, who is the nicest, greatest person on the planet, first of all. And when anyone ever says anything bad about him, I just want to kill them because Tom Hanks is like,
we've got it on the record now.
But like, we shot this movie and like he can't go to dinner or like go out to the movies, so he would like rent out a room at a restaurant to take the whole cast to dinner, just because he wanted to go to dinner with the cast like any other actor. All of us unrecognizable people would be like, do you want to go to this like bar tonight and hang out and get to know each other? And be like, oh right, but Hanks can't come.
Yeah, because
that would be like on the front page of the newspaper then that Tom Hanks visited like a local bar. So anyway, I feel like I'm in this place right now where like my work is being noticed, but I still can like go to the grocery store. But growing up, I used to watch a lot of movies with my dad. It was a way we like bonded, and we had HBO, which was like a big deal. And so we would watch movies on HBO. And my dad's thing was always like, when we'd see an actor, a character actor from a movie we'd watched a couple of nights ago pop up in another movie, he'd be like, hey, it's that guy from that movie. And it would drive me crazy because already then I had like, I wanted to be an actor and I knew like who everybody was. But Dad, that's Joe Pantoliano. And we saw him in, this movie. And then now he's in this movie. And he'd be like, yeah, that guy from that movie. And now my dad and I joke that I have become that guy from that movie. Like for so many people, they're like, that's that guy. What have I seen him in? It's that guy.
Well, now it's like, wait, how you take your phone out and you're like, okay, how old are they? Who are they married to? Like everyone just does like the Wikipedia stats. And then you're like, wait, I forgot I was watching a movie.
Right.
I think super recognizable actors like can't get away with anything on set either. I worked with a super famous guy over quite a long TV series, and he was so lovely like most of the time, but he'd had like one bad night with his kid who was up all night and he was a bit cranky. And it's that day that everyone remembers, that cranky day that he had. Nobody remembers the other stuff. And
such a good point. We all have those days, or even just those moments in a day, whether it's on set or like at a restaurant. Like if I'm I really try not to be rude to any people in the service industry, but some days you're just like you're not as friendly as you could be. But if you're a super recognizable person, then they're like, oh, that person. That person's a dick. Or,
and still now that crew, like I spoke to somebody the other day who was on that crew with me, and they're like, oh, remember when he did that? And I'm like, that one day. Of the
all those other days they were lovely.
It's tricky. It's very tricky.
With all of that in mind, Michael, if you had to pick a chapter title for your career thus far, what would it be?
The I am, or the me be.
We could do both. We can have some parentheses. That's wonderful. Yes.
I like the parentheses.
Yeah, a lot of parentheses on this show. Because people usually do exactly what you just did, is they'll say one and then they're like, wait a second.
No, here's another one. Yeah, here's
No, I love that. I love that.
This is so cheesy. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I feel like the longer I'm an actor, the more I get to know myself through the characters. Like, I feel like in the beginning it was this exploration of like other people's lives, right? The interest was stepping into someone else's shoes, someone else's story, a different time period, a different country, a different planet, whatever. And the longer I do it, it's more like, oh, there is no separation. Like, it's not some character that's out there. It's just another aspect of me.
Yeah.
And maybe it's an aspect I haven't explored a ton, or that I don't access a lot, but it's still me. And so I feel like I've learned so much from all the projects I've done, and become more expansive as a person. And so this journey of being an actor is actually a journey towards myself, or towards self-knowledge,
Has there been one particular role that you've learned something like you didn't expect to learn?
That's a great question. Sometimes it's the character and sometimes it's the project. This play that I mentioned, The Aliens by Annie Baker, that I did a long time ago, I learned so much about stillness and simplicity and trusting my own ability to sort of, just as an actor, think a thought and know that it'll be seen, that it'll be felt, that I don't have to show as much as I sometimes feel like I have to, that I don't have to do as much. And that's partly about trusting the audience, like trusting, whether it's in the theater or on a screen or, on your phone, trusting that whoever's watching is intelligent and, is also a human being who brings all of their life experience to it, and that you don't have to spoon feed people. And of course there are shows and things that are that we just want big, broad entertainment. Sometimes
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
spoon
yeah.
fed to us because we're tired or we don't want to
Yeah.
work too hard. But then there are other times where you can be really small and subtle and just silent or
I feel like the difference between a great performance and someone where you're like, I can tell that they're like acting is what you said about finding a piece of yourself in the character, or learning something about yourself in the character. I think when people just try to perform is when you're completely out of it and you're like, I feel like I'm watching a soap opera when it's
right,
not meant to be like that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes what you access about yourself is not like pleasant. That's
Yeah.
the other part. It's not just like, oh, I learned all these beautiful things about what a great human being I am. It's like, oh no, you like find a dark corner of yourself that you tried to like
Yeah.
deny or stay away from or suppress, but actually like that kind of self-analysis that you have to do as an actor, I find really not in a navel-gazing sort of narcissistic way that it's a benefit of being an actor, but just that it then makes my work that much richer because I'm exploring my own humanity on a deeper level. Yeah. I also just think audiences, after a while, you don't want someone who's seeking your approval all the time. We have this our dog is very sweet, but he's a shelter dog, so he's kind of reactive and anxious. Yeah. And so like, there's a dog training thing. Like if you're throwing a ball with your dog, if you like run towards your dog to like get the ball or whatever, they're going to run away.
Yeah.
But to actually get your dog to come to you is to like, it's counterintuitive, but is to walk away from them, is to like run in the opposite direction, and then they'll want to like come towards you. And I feel like there's an element of that sometimes with storytelling where it's like, if I'm constantly seeking the laugh or the response, it's not going to come. But if I like back off a little bit and let you come to it, then there's space for the laugh to happen, or the
yeah. Even in the funny moments or the serious moments, sometimes I've found your characters to be very funny, but I think it's because you're playing it as a real person and not as like a shtick.
I think everyone in Severance does that really well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's one of the great things.
We talked to Dari about it.
Yeah, it's really true. And I think Ben and Dan, Ben Stiller and Dan Erickson, are just such great masters of tone. It's this razor's edge on that show. I mean, if anyone was doing too much, it just would be awful. But and to find a consistent tone amongst all these characters who are so different, like the heightenedness of like Milchick or Rickon versus the like very realistic, especially like Mark, Audi Mark. It's very naturalistic and for them all to feel like they live in somewhat the same world is such a tough task.
Yeah, talk about learning stuff about yourself. I have learned so much about myself from that show, just in terms of like I've dealt with a lot of medical trauma, so the severance thing to me is very real in terms of like just trying to get your brain to be in one place all the time. And to the point where I was like at that event when Ben Stiller was like, I wonder like, what it is about the show that makes people connect with it so much. I was standing in the back and I was like, does someone have a mic? Like, can I can you hand it to me? Because I would love to talk about how much it means to me. So
oh wow.
I'll just figure out how to get
through all of that, but I'm glad
it's okay. The show has been very healing for me. I literally bring it up in therapy as like visual examples of what I'm experiencing, because it's the first time I've ever seen my experience represented on television, and it's it's not meant to be about that at all. But I was literally Googling like how to like write an op-ed piece, because I was like, maybe I could write a letter to Ben Stiller and they'll put it like on Vulture or something, and then he'll be able to read it. But it's been super impactful. Yeah, I gotta figure it out. That is one thing that I will actually follow through on because it means a lot. Maybe not our app, but
no.
Anyway.
It's testament to the power of TV, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you're not just making entertainment here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in this moment of television where we have these opportunities to tell these sort of almost long form movie stories. Like, I love mainstream network television as well, and I grew up on like must see TV. I love sitcoms and but this new opportunity to really take your time and make something artistic that is television, but is not not your normal sort of just procedural show or
right. Yeah,
I feel very lucky to be a part of this moment of television. And I was on Orange Is the New Black, which was one of those first streaming shows. Obviously there was prestige television already happening on like HBO or like FX, like there was Sopranos and Breaking Bad and 6 Feet Under, but like the streaming thing, to be a part of it at the very beginning was such a strange new frontier, and it also just felt like there were this opportunity for me and other actors that were a little outside the box, that didn't look like or sound like your normal like NBC sitcom kind of actor or whatever, and all of a sudden these like character actors were playing leading roles or major supporting roles, and I just felt like the whole thing got blown wide open, or like you can tell all kinds of different stories now. It doesn't have to
that
be
show
the
was
same
amazing. That show was the first thing I ever saw you, and I was obsessed.
Sure.
And we had John Magaro on, and he was on that show as well. And when I brought it up, he was like, "Really? That was the first thing?" I was like, "Yeah, I loved Orange Is the New Black."
Yeah, I love John. He's a good pal of mine, and we're both from Cleveland.
Oh,
originally.
Really?
Yeah. We didn't know each other in Cleveland, but we know, and we worked on Captain Phillips together, is where we first met. And then we just shot this movie in Germany like a year and a half ago. That is out in Germany now, and hopefully will come. Yeah. He plays the great jazz pianist Keith Jarrett in this movie, and I play a music journalist who's trying to get an interview with him.
I love
John's a great actor.
Yeah. And we both loved Severance, and then I was like, I probably should stop messaging him about Severance because he's gonna block me. But he's very lovely person.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you from your child and your life, but
at least you managed to keep yours out of the room, Michael.
Yeah, I really thought I was going to be the one to blow it, but Haley did. Bodhi.
Well, one of the benefits of being single and alone, right, guys?
Only you can blow it. It's only your fault.
That's true, and I do on a daily basis, believe you me.
I think Bodhi's a bit confused because I can hear him telling his brother in the living room that Spiderman's on the podcast.
Oh my god.
Go put the outfit on.
Not Spiderman.
Just Spider-Man.
Not Spiderman.
He's more than aware of you there. He literally watched that movie last night.
You watched Homecoming last night? That's crazy.
Yeah, kind of.
Bits and pieces. The way kids watch a movie,
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Michael.
Oh my god, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So fun.
We'll fake say goodbye here, and then we'll stop the recording and make sure that everything uploads.
Thanks.
And then we can for real say goodbye.
Great.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Great.
You've been a delight, Michael.
It's been delightful. Right? The delight was mine.
Very
Cheers.
I feel like we've ended on a really theatrical note.
Cheerio, Haley.
Cheerio.
And scene.